I wasn't going to make a video like this because I haven't really played Warzone 2 since it launched. I played it for a few weeks when it first came out, and I realized pretty quickly that it just wasn't an experience that I was enjoying. And recently as well, I've seen a lot of other community members speaking out about the state of Warzone 2, and I thought, well, what am I really going to add to that conversation by just saying the same thing that they're already saying? But the reason I changed my mind and I have made this video is because someone reached out to me. It was a friend that I used to play Warzone 1 with on occasion, and they said to me that they weren't playing Warzone 2 either. And we got into this conversation about why that was. And it was really interesting because this friend that I've got, they don't play games like I do. We're very different gamers. I'm a content creator. I'm playing games 5 days a week on stream. I'm creating videos for people to watch on YouTube. And generally speaking, I'm much more invested in the games that I play. You might call me a hardcore gamer. Now, my friend, he isn't one of those gamers. They've got a full-time job. They're just clocking in a few hours every week. They're just trying to have a good time when they do play. They just want to enjoy themselves for a bit. And the reason that I found this conversation so interesting is because despite the fact we do sit on opposite ends of this gamer spectrum, the concerns and issues that we had with Warzone 2, they were largely linked together, which highlighted to me that Warzone 2, as it currently stands, isn't really satisfying anyone, the hardcore gamers and the more casual ones. So I thought I'd go ahead and make this video, go through maybe 5 or 6 points that came up in that conversation about Warzone 2, and hopefully maybe offer some kind of improvements to the game that might solve some of the problems that we've come up against. Plus, there's a little bonus point at the end that I've been thinking about recently with regards to Warzone 2 and some of its competitors in the market, and how that Warzone 2 might be in some real trouble in the near future. The first thing that we've got to talk about is the meta. Now, I know recently changes were made to the main culprits that were running riot in Warzone 2. That was the RPK and the Fennec, but the general topic of meta is something that we need to speak about because so far for Warzone 2, the balance of weapons has been handled quite strangely, and the pace at which changes are being made is causing some issues. So in terms of statistics, the RPK and the Fennec were by far and away the best options to run. For over 100 days, those weapons remained as the top picks for Warzone 2. Now, in the beginning, I thought that popularity would be noticed by the developers, and then they'd come out with a hotfix really quickly, and those guns would be brought back into line for a little while until a new meta weapon emerged or a new attachment became just really well known and popular, and then the cycle would keep going. But that wasn't the case. What you ended up with after a couple of weeks was very repetitive and predictable gameplay situations, because as the word spread, more and more people would start running this weapon combo, and it wasn't nerfed and it wasn't changed. Because it's the most powerful option, more and more people are going to take that against anyone else that's trying to use it, because if you can't beat them, you may as well join them. Now, for someone like me, it was really easy to take those guns, get the right attachments, boom, you're done. I'm winning most engagements in Warzone 2. But for my friend, it was a bit of a different experience. He hadn't actually ranked up the RPK or the Fennec all the way up, so they didn't have access to the right attachments to build the weapons the way that they were most powerful. So they had to spend time grinding to unlock those attachments, and then, after a couple of weeks of them using the weapons in Warzone 2, they started to experience the same thing that I did. They were just getting into the same gunfights against other players using exactly the same weapons, and it became boring for them. Now, as I said, if changes had been made sooner, much sooner than 100 days from launch, then the RPK Fennec situation wouldn't have led to that stale gameplay experience, and instead, players would have been looking at different weapons, trying them out, trying to find something that worked for them and their gameplay style. But ultimately, what's happened is, because it's been around for so long, people have got bored of the game, and as is the case with me and my friend, we just stopped playing. Hopefully the developers moving forward can start issuing hotfixes at a much quicker pace so they can stop these weapons from becoming real problems, or they start degrading the gameplay experience too much that it starts to see players just dropping out of the game. We've had the RPK and the Fennec, that's now been fixed, kind of. But we've now got the KV broadside with its fire ammunition, which again seems to be causing similar problems to what we had before. Everyone is now running that weapon, because if you're not, you're going to lose gunfights at close range. So we'll have to see what happens, but that's one thing. They need to start addressing metas or broken weapons much more quickly. Next, let's mention cheating. It's on the rise in Warzone 2 at the moment. I played some Resurgent solos back when it was active, and I encountered quite a few cheaters who would be using wall hacks to detect where I was, and then they would just wait behind cover for me to push, and then they'd take me out by pre-aiming onto me so they knew where I was, or maybe they had an aimbot, but I'd noticed a lot more people just using wall hacks recently, and then waiting for people to push them and then killing them instantly. It happened enough that it stopped me playing after a while, even though I thought that the Resurgence experience was actually a lot more enjoyable than the standard Battle Royale on Al Mazrah. The new map is pretty decent, and the changes that speed up your plating and being able to move whilst you're plating, that made it feel a lot more fluid. Cheating is always going to be present in online games, and having a game spoil once in a while is something that's going to happen, but you can probably look past it. I know I've got a bit of tolerance to look past a cheater once in a while, but during that play session when I was playing Resurgent Solos, it was about 90 minutes long, I experienced at least 3 cheaters, and this is despite Warzone 2 launching with the kernel-level Ricochet anti-cheat that was developed and implemented into Warzone 1, and we know it was definitely needed there because there was an insane cheating problem in Warzone 1. I actually remember speaking to my friend before Warzone 2 launched, and even they knew that the game was launching with an anti-cheat day 1, and that got them excited because they knew that far less of their games would end up being ruined. But then speaking to that friend the other day, it's clear that the cheating issue is prevalent for them as well. Once again, it's a reason they've decided to stop playing the game because despite the presence of an anti-cheat, too many of their games are being ruined for them to be able to look past that problem. Cheating is a real issue for hardcore players and casual players because we're all in the same matchmaking pool. We've all got crossplay enabled, we're all in the same lobbies, etc. And it's an element I'm sure is pushing more and more players away from Warzone 2. Another thing that my friend mentioned to me was that they couldn't hear enemy players around them well enough, and that was music to my ears because I've had that issue since the very first day of Warzone 2. Footstep audio just isn't consistent at all in this game. Sometimes you will be able to hear an enemy that's nearby, and you can make a play on them. Other times, entire enemy teams just sort of roll up on you, sprinting towards you like a herd of elephants, and they just don't make a sound. There's loads of issues still with the occlusion of audio, where certain objects don't make a noise unless you look at them. The chopper being one of those. Sometimes you won't hear a chopper turning up on you until you physically turn around and look at the chopper, and then the audio, miraculously, immediately starts playing as soon as you see it. That's a bit broken. Audio is a real fundamental part of FPS games because not only do you have to react fast to things that are happening on your screen, things you can see, but you also need to be able to react fast to threats around you that you can't see, but are still in your immediate area. It's certainly not fair for the player on the receiving side. Arguably, I feel worse when I'm the one rolling up on an unsuspecting enemy player, and they've just got no idea that I'm there. It feels really cheap, and most of the time you don't know whether you're giving off footsteps or not. You kill that player, and you don't know whether it was a properly legit kill or not. My friend said he's been in so many situations where enemies have got the jump on them, and they've just not heard footsteps. Sometimes even you have enemies that will parachute onto your location. Maybe they land on the roof above you. That's something that you should be able to hear to let you know that somebody's turned up. Sometimes there's just no sound for that parachute being cut or pulled at the last second so the enemy isn't taking any damage when they land. That should be a dead giveaway that someone is there, and the sound is either so quiet that you can't hear it, or it simply doesn't play. Situations like that, they make me frustrated, and I know many of you will feel the same way. Audio has supposedly already been addressed in recent updates, but I've got to be honest, it doesn't really feel like all that much has changed. And then there's just a bunch of other small annoying things that don't amount to too much on their own, but don't feel fun when it all comes together. It just creates an even longer list. First of all, sniper rifles. They don't reward you with a one-shot headshot down or a kill. But a bomb drone that you sit behind cover to operate, so you're almost completely out of the line of fire, can one-shot you. Doesn't seem very fair. There's still a presence of AI on the maps in Battle Royale at strongholds and black sites. I just don't think AI really belongs in Warzone 2. There's a new event on Ashika Island that spawns AI as well that got added recently. It doesn't really seem like a great idea. That's something that fits DMZ much more than Warzone 2 and actually would be a pretty cool thing for DMZ. The TTK and the TTD, the time to death, still feels very inconsistent and doesn't really match up. That might have something to do with weapons having different damage values against armor versus actual HP at range. That was something discovered by True Game Data not too long ago, and it might be messing with gunfights unintentionally, but regardless, still not really ideal. We've got multiple cases of game crashes, dev errors, server crashes, poor server performance, and just generally poor performance of the game. And those things, of course, make the game harder to enjoy because you're not really playing when those things happen. And it seems to be affecting everyone on every single platform, so yeah, not great. The list just goes on. There's all these little small things that still haven't been fixed that are just causing frustration. But the one thing right now that I think puts Warzone 2 in a real state of trouble is the competition, the other games in the Battle Royale space. Apex Legends keeps breaking its all-time peak concurrent player count on Steam, and right now that game just seems to be going from strength to strength. It's bringing in more new players or it's enticing lapsed players back in. And then just the other day, rumors started floating around that Fortnite is going to add a first-person mode at the beginning of the next season. That is two huge competitors to Warzone 2's Battle Royale mode, muscling in and providing an alternative experience, creating innovations in the space. And of course, competition breeds innovation, and the games around Warzone 2 appeared to have seen what's going on, and right now are making moves to put themselves in a more attractive position. And you simply can't argue with numbers. Apex is pulling some massive numbers right now, and the growth is there to see, plain and simple. That's a huge problem for Warzone 2 competing in the BR space, not even mentioning the fact that Fortnite might muscle back in with its own first-person mode. And you better watch out for that, because I can see a lot of people jumping ship and going for that if it does indeed come true. Warzone 2 right now, it's on the ropes, and it's got to do a lot of fighting if it wants to make its way back in. If you are still watching the video at this point, I think you should go and watch one of my DMZ videos, because they're pretty good, and you don't experience even half of the issues in that mode that we've been talking about in this video.